Hello, hello. I think I have an important topic to discuss when it comes to sin in our lives. One thing I think is we all sin. I think no matter how much our character improves and how much God helps us change spiritually, that we still will have sin in our lives until, we die and Jesus comes back and saves us. Honestly, when you talk about stuff like this, it's really important to have scriptures to back it all up. I'm a little lazy. I could go to my computer, it's right there, and start looking up, but I'm not gonna. Also, my stem is broke on that side of the glasses, sadly. So we deal with sin our whole lives, no matter how free of it we are or not. We still deal with it. What that looks like, great question. I think some people are really stuck in sin. Murderous, thieving, lustful, gluttonous, lazy, maybe just a biggest heathen. Who's like the biggest sinful person we have? The Joker, I guess, but I don't know. He's not. He's more interesting than that. I don't really feel like he's the picture of wrath or whatever. Ooh. I'm thinking of a book that I've read recently who is a very warmongering person. Loves just destruction and chaos, basically. But anyways, quick example. Satan, obviously. But I don't know who's the most villainous, evil person. Just easy to go to. But yeah. Oh, let's just go like satanic gang member. Like MI6 or whatever, or MS6. I can't remember what they're called, but in El Salvador, they just incarcerated like 80,000 of them. Not that long ago. Anyways, murderous gang members. Lustful, heathenous ones, possibly. Who are sexually immoral and, I don't know, new age, like spiritual, demonic, evil, well, and satanic. They turn from a regular gang into a satanic gang, which is an interesting history. But I only learned that because I was watching an interview between the president of El Salvador that incarcerated all of them and Tucker Carlson. But anyways, those are the most heathenish, and then like the most holy people we know. Personally, my grandparents are really holy people. Think of like, if you have good grandparents that are godly, that's kind of an easy example. But even them deal with sin. And what does it look like for them? I really wouldn't know, to be honest. Like, because it's like, okay, at the very least, a parent, there's so much people that do hide and cover up what they got going on. Like, especially when they're my age, like in their 20s, 30s. People all want to look good. So I'm not exactly talking about that, because it's like you kind of know people are actually covering things up. But older people, I still think maybe they cover some things up. I don't know. But if they have sin in their lives, I don't know. Maybe at the very least with old people, it's like you don't see them being wrathful, and definitely in how they treat other people. It's like they're always treating other people with grace and humility and honesty, and it's easy to go talk to them. They're very approachable, not murderous. I don't know, but good people overall. So there's like a scale of holiness, I suppose. And I was thinking, like, how do we, as Christians who desire to have less sin in our lives, but struggle with it, tempted by it, fail in it, how can we move across that spectrum? How can we move toward more holiness in our lives, and truly like being less tempted to do evil, struggle with XYZ desires less. And you definitely hear about people who convert to Christ and God working in them and taking away these like evil desires, like taking away addictions, breaking the chains of sin. Yeah, that's the thing. And like I'm just like God took away my desire for alcohol, or God took away my desire for opioids, or narcotics, or whatever. Or yeah, God, it like took away my anger, my wrath, or I've heard at least stuff like that for sure. Kind of thinking about if God ever helps people with other like eating disorders, or I do think that's a thing too, but I'm more thinking about women that struggled with eating disorders more so. I was kind of thinking about people who struggle with eating too much, which is like maybe everyone in the world, at some points or another. But anyways, I think God, especially when they're like someone's getting converted or kind of a newer Christian, it's like God sometimes will easily take away desires from people. I really do think, in case and point, it is a spiritual thing and that God helps with. But I also definitely kind of understand there's a logic of like, sometimes we just have emotional issues in life that lead us into alcoholism, or lead us into drug use, or lead us into social isolation or social dependence or whatever. So, and people will probably, go back and forth on judging that basically. But anyways, then you get a Christian who, let's say, doesn't really struggle with sin too much, but it's got like a main sin in their life that they're dealing with and irritated by. And it's like they want it out of their life. I want my sin out of my life. Like other Christians, like they want their the main thing they struggle with out of their life, and they ask God, they pray God, and God doesn't do nothing about it. It's like you're still there, that temptation's still there, struggle's still there. And it's like, well, this kind of sucks, kind of irritating. And, it gets so disheartening and frustrating, you just stop caring for long periods of time. And I don't know, go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Sometimes, it's kind of a life. It's kind of I don't know, there's almost like phases of that kind of stuff. In and out, like more of the sin, less of the sin, more of the sin, less of the sin, same for a while, even more. It's almost like at that point, it almost feels like if God isn't taking away your sinful desires, your temptations, it's almost like, is it a tool that you're using to basically develop my character or test me with, those sorts of things. And like that's all fine and well, and I do think there's a place for that in our lives that God does use. But personally for me, I just get to points where I just get so sick of sin in my life, regardless of that stuff. And I'm like, how do you really get it rid of more so? Like, how do you move across the spectrum from that sin in your life to less of it, at least? Even if you can't ever fully get rid of it, how do you help it? And I think, and then that's where I kind of concluded, the only way you can really help it to have less and less of that sin be an influence on your life is if you go and you grow closer and closer to God. I really think that's the only way to really deaden the sin's influence in our life. And it's like, how do you do that? Well, and I think growing closer to God, one, I don't think it's always forced. I definitely don't think it's always forced. But I do think going to church, sometimes, and this isn't necessarily a healthy outlet if you're desperate to get rid of your sin, but going out of your way to like help other people or pray. One thing, okay, this one's regardless, is pray for yourself, pray for other people, pray, and read the word. And I think it's like, again, not one of those things you grind, like not one of those things you dump endless hours into. I think it's something you do just more on a routine basis. Like, just meet with the Lord regular. You don't just go all, like, man, that's crazy to say this, sounds a little messed up, but you don't go all out in doing this, because that's just like trying too hard. It's a relationship with God. It's not like he's not asking you to clock X number of hours. Like, it's like Christian A has 10,000 hours and Christian B has 1,000 hours. It's like, but maybe Christian B is farther along in his relationship with God than Christian A is, because where the heart is at. It's much more, when it comes to a relationship, it's much more about where your heart's at, and it's much more about being honest with God, and just not being disrespectful, not being nasty, and trying to just give God your mind, give you God your real honest thoughts, like talking to him and praying to him, which, I mean, same thing, but reading the Bible, just in, like, sometimes making it a discipline, like of reading the Bible. Going to church every week is pretty easy for me, but going to church every week, taking communion, like, if you've never gotten baptized, get baptized. And in your suffering of your temptation of your sin, like in that, it's like enduring it, and enduring in that sin. And I'll be honest, like, for me, I ain't enduring long. I just, like, lots of times I don't push it. I don't know if this is right or not, but I learned, like, with this more long-term sin in our lives, I'm not even saying I'm right about any of this, but I'm just personal experience, testimony, whatever. It's not really a testimony. I guess that's kind of like my life story, but anyways, personal experience. I just, I can't fight my sin. I can't fight. I mean, I can, but in the end, it's too much for me. My sin is too much for me. I can't, like, if I could control it, I wouldn't need God, basically. Like, what would be the point of God if I could overcome my temptations? Like, they're my temptations, and they're powerful, and they really are. Like, sin is powerful. It's hard to fight against, and there's spiritual warfare, and sin goes in hand with that, and so all those thoughts, kind of. Now, sometimes I like to be more concise and to the point, and it's not always easy to do that. But in conclusion, growing closer to God and it's not always even a forced thing, but just at the very least, tell God what's on your heart. Tell him what you're thinking. Pray to him. Pray for other people. Go to church. Do work for the Lord. Sometimes maybe God is going to ask us to do stuff, and it don't even really relate to us, or us getting rid of our sin or whatever. And it's just like, do it, like, just do the right thing. And at the end, like, we suffer in our lives, and even separate from sin, like, even just in regular life, it's like we kind of deal with other people's sin, or we deal with other people's bad choices, or we deal with things that just happen in life, and it's like no rhyme or reason. I don't know. I'm not trying to be too hard of an opinion about some of these things, but I'm just giving you the gist. Like, life's complicated a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, if you're a Christian maybe has one main sin that they got dealing with. It's like just be honest with yourself. Be humble. Oh, and I don't know if I even said this yet. I think it was one of my main thoughts that I even wanted to make the video about. But it's like, be humble. Be humble before yourself. And just admit you struggle. I think all of us sometimes have too much of an ego. And it's like we struggle to be humble. Like we struggle with pride, basically. And it's like, be humble. I struggle with X, Y, Z. Or X, whatever it is. But, and you definitely can like confess to a close family member, friend, someone you trust. That can be helpful. And sometimes it's just not the right thing to do too, though. Sometimes you really just need to talk to God about it. And like, you'll understand you, but don't worry about it. You're going to live life and you're going to fail and you're going to go through stuff and life's going to hurt. What are you going to do about it? You can't control it. It's out of your control in some ways. And the sin, especially when you got a sin that's hard to deal with, it's out of your control. It's like, you need God. We need God. We need Jesus' death on the cross to die for our sins, I'm going to upload this on my Christian channel. Anything else good I gotta say? Be humble before yourself, and be humble to God, and just say, God, this sin is out of control in my life, and I give it to you. I give you my sin, and I ask for forgiveness of it. And even when you're gonna go off and decide to commit your sin, like, just give it to God and tell him, and you're doing your sin. You live your life, you move on, you go through days in life, and maybe over time, over the years for me, man, I've definitely gone through different phases of temptation and sin and struggle with that in my life, but in like good ways, and I don't know, and you hear like your parents or your family, your older Christians, and you say like life is always kind of changing, and like what they struggled with before and what they struggle with now is different. I feel like I'm gonna experience that more and more, and I can even say I'm almost 30. I'm 29, and I can even say that's true in my life. It's a little bit been just kind of one main sin that hasn't really changed a whole lot how it is, but it's changed. It has changed. And even I think I do struggle with different things too in different ways. I think one thing I struggle with a lot more being older is like contentment. Not necessarily contentment specifically, even though yes, it's true, but more like comparison. Comparing to other people my age or anybody. But so yeah, I hope this word has been like encouraging to someone out there. I feel like it's important for me to say some of these things, because honestly, I don't even feel like some of these ideas are out there as much as they should be. Again, like, I understand I wasn't super concise and to the point. Maybe I could be more concise and to the point, but I do think it's good to have these talk to camera YouTube videos, because they're really relatable and they're helpful, and there's something about the honesty, that people, like, we can all like relate to and connect with each other more like this. So there's definitely a place for these type of videos. I'm gonna end it. Love you, Christian. You got this. Don't be a coward, and just keep living your life and do your thing. God's got you. I don't honestly care what you're going through. Like, God's got you, and he's our God. And I care, but I kind of don't either. It's like, we'll make it. Adios, amigos and amigas. Anyways, bye.